My parents were both born in California, relocated involuntarily during World War II, and put in internment concentration camps. Post that experience, they were both advocates from the start. Whether it was advocating for the neighborhood in which we lived, which was in the shadow of a lead smelter plant, which was the #1 most polluted location in the United States for 35 years. There was lead arsenic that was in the groundwater and in the soil in my community. So I feel like from an early age, I was raised to be smart, but not to be invisible. I was really drawn to public policy. For me, it was a way to impact not just myself, but to change policies that would impact everybody. So when I was very young, about 18, I did an internship at our state capitol, and I was hooked. I graduated from college, worked for a US senator from Hawaii. It was an eye-opening and inspiring experience. From that, what I realized is I really wanted to do kind of the data-driven, research-based policy. So I went back to Denver and I worked for a national state policy organization for more than 20 years. We represented all 50 states, Republican, Democrat, Independent, and our job was to provide them data. At one point, I was ready to kind of spread my wings, and I made the leap to the private sector. Unfortunately, I had an experience with breast cancer, and that combined experience really took me into the shoes of patients and people who I do my work for. It's one thing to be on the side of it where you want to be protective and supportive. It's another thing to be on the other side where you're the one who is actually impacted. I found it very challenging. With support, I got through it. I think we can get caught in our heads around policymakers and legislators who don't care about us and don't want to hear from us, and they forget that policymakers work for us. Like, we vote for them. Like, we vote them into that position to represent us. Like, it's about the patient voice. It is about the constituent voice. It's bringing it to life. It's saying, you have the power in your experience to change decisions, to change opinions. And it takes a little courage, and it takes the ability to just think about how you're going to capture it, the issue you want to impact, and then just kind of being bold and getting out there to do it.
I am not someone who lives with a chronic illness. I am someone who, unfortunately, has grown up around folks that have basically my whole life. I was born in rural Connecticut. I was born to an upper middle class family, really the definition of being born into privilege. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, my mother was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of muscular dystrophy, which is a slow-moving neuromuscular condition. Many folks are more familiar with MS. It's a disease that has symptoms very similar to MS. I found out very quickly that the life of my mother and the life of my family were going to be really different from my friends and their parents around us. I found out very quickly really what the true definition of being an advocate is. The true definition of being an advocate is clearing the path for those that can't. My earliest memories of advocating for my mother were my mother's physical independence starting to wane. One of the things that I was able to do on vacations was I would try to spot curbs or trip hazards for her. I would walk in front of her and try to identify those types of things as a young kid. And when I look back on that now, that really is like the truest sense of what it is to be an advocate. It just gets more complicated as you get older. As I got older in this story, unfortunately, one of my closest friends in elementary school was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And it was really my second kind of lesson in life that life is complicated and not always as easy as you think it is. The lesson that I take away from kind of my early exposure to advocacy is that we all don't have a say in the cards that we're dealt. We just have to play the cards that are in our hand. And I think that was my motivation in getting involved with advocacy, was understanding how can I help people play their hand better, knowing that people don't choose to be born with a higher likelihood of having a brain tumor. They don't choose to be born with having a degenerative neuromuscular disease. So how can I be a part of the solution? I knew that I wanted to be involved in this work, and I knew that I wanted to somehow lend my strengths to this space. And really what I found through about a 7-year career at a nonprofit in the autoimmune space was that I can help people share their voice. I can help people strengthen their voice, and I can help people work the system in a way that they get in front of the people with the most influence that can change their life.